Thank you, Mr. President. A number of items to begin. I'd like to, on behalf of the city and certainly myself, wish to express condolences to the Bolger family, whose tragic loss of Mr. and Mrs. Bolger over the weekend is weighing heavy on all our hearts in the community. We're deeply saddened by their loss, and we're appreciative of the work of the fire department in addressing that in a professional manner. And in the event that there's no injuries on the part of our fire department. A number of items to recognize here, as well as you have before you on an item on the agenda, item number 5, having to do with the application for the burn grant through the Department of Justice, federal with the stimulus program. It was approved in committee the other night, and it was a split vote, and there's been some questions since. And I think it's important to understand that the application allows us to apply for, in this case, up to 14 police officers. There is a fairly modest match, largely the training and the equipment of those officers that would be due near the front end of their employment. While it's a relatively modest contribution, it is one that is could perhaps be beyond our means, particularly with the tight finances this year. So, it would be my recommendation to council to pass the attached ordinance here, and we'll make the decision, should we be awarded the grant, in terms of how many we might accept. Up to the 14, might be 3 or 4, might be none at all. But I think it would be wise for us to apply for the grant, and should we be awarded any amount of police officers in the application or in the award process, we make that decision at that time as to what we can reasonably afford. I think it'll probably be obvious at that point whether the economy starts its turn, in which case there might be a few dollars available to match it, or things may be worse, in which case we won't be able to. But I would suggest that we pass this, make the application, and decide at the time whether we can accept the hires or not. It's been described in the paper. We had the hearing in front of the judge in the Court of Common Pleas last week relative to the taxpayer suit calling for a stay of the layoffs within the fire department. That was part of the initial layoffs that took place in the police, where we had brought 20 personnel, civilians within the police department, and I think about 17 or 18 in other areas of the city. This was a follow-up to that included the fire department. There were 11 firefighters given notice that led to that lawsuit. The judge ultimately recognized that city government, council, and administration have the rights to operate within our budgets and to make those management decisions. And those layoffs went forward as of the 15th. It's nothing that any of us take any satisfaction other than meeting our budget. These are difficult times, and we've had to absorb some challenging cuts in every department, and that which we hold perhaps most dear and sacred as our responsibilities to our residents is safety, largely through the police and fire departments. It's very difficult, but having to meet our budget, we have no other choices but to do what essentially was done. The budget that was passed, that has actually been leading into it for years, we've had to pare down expenses within the city, largely in an effort to preserve whatever we've been able to within the police and fire budgets. Clearly our top 2 priorities, and witness in the fact that even with the budget cuts, we're spending nearly $12 million, including the police levy for the police department, over $8 million with fire department, and in the neighborhood of $1.25 million for our parks department. That would be our third. And those are the areas that, with all the cuts, we've tried the hardest to preserve those 3 departments, police, fire, and parks. This past, on the 14th, we received our second of 2 allocations from RETA, and from our RETA distributions, year to date, we're approximately 10% below this time last year, and which suggests we have more cuts yet to make. The budget that was approved was assuming a 4.6% reduction in income taxes. They're going deeper, and Mr. Pileski can address this during his comments, perhaps now or at another time, but it appears from in consultation over the past number of days that revenue estimate will be lowered sometime in the near future. From an administrative standpoint, we're preparing for additional cuts. It could be in the neighborhood of $500,000, $700,000, $800,000, depending on what that adjustment would be. It's our intention to take things incrementally at this point. The layoffs and the cuts that we embarked upon a number of weeks ago were more sweeping. I think at this point we're going to do it more incrementally. Given the fact that we've cut everywhere is as close as we've been able to, and still recognizing that the most amount of money is still spent police and fire. Not wanting to make any more cuts in those departments, at least parks is probably the next target. We felt we were going to be able to preserve much of the park programming this year by spending down the special revenue fund of the Parks Department for this one time to get through this year. It appears we're going to have to use those funds simply to maintain the properties, keep the grass cut so our residents are able to, at least on a pickup basis and through perhaps minimal programming, be able to use our park facilities. So I think that's something we're going to be talking about in the very near future, and near future being the next number of days, certainly within the next week or so. So that will be coming forth. I think by the next finance meeting a week from tonight, we'll have more direction as to what we would recommend in that regard. So that's kind of the challenging news, but I'll finish my remarks by acknowledging a really exciting event in our community. The Murray Ridge Raiders basketball team won a state championship here and brought it home to Elyria, and we're very proud of their effort. Turn it back to you, Mr. President, but I think at the appropriate time we'll have resolutions to award to the teammates.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor Grace. Mr. Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week we sent an email out to council members in regards to the tax collections distributed by the Regional Income Tax Agency in April. Just to repeat that information for you and for the audience, our collections in April were down 23% as compared to last April. That's a drop of over $300,000 in revenue in 1 month. For the year, we are down 10%, as the mayor indicated, through April, which is a total of about $650,000 for the year. At this point, I really don't believe I have any choice, but I'm going to have to lower my revenue estimate. I'm going to wait until the end of the month, perhaps the May 1st distribution we'll get from Rita and see where that is, but I'm certain that I'm going to have to lower my revenue estimate with the Lorain County Budget Commission. So I'm just warning you to be prepared for more cuts. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Pileski. Mr. Eichelon.
Nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Schilling.
Yes, Mr. President, I just wanted to state that I had a telephone conversation today with Stan Dabrowski regarding setting up a meeting dealing with the Sunshine Law as previously requested by Mr. Craig and other members of council. And we tentatively set a date for Thursday, May 28th, 2009 at 10:30 a.m. That's on our calendars, but I'd like to know how many people can attend. If we don't have anybody coming, then we'll cancel the meeting. But as of right now, a meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 28th, 2009, 10:30 a.m. And it'll probably be in this chambers. So if anybody has any questions, please advise.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Mr. Mackey. Thank you. Chief Benton.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council. I'd like to, there are several issues I wanted to go over with council at this meeting, but I'd like to postpone it to our next meeting out of respect to the Bolger family and just express our deepest sympathy for myself and the fire department to the Bolgers and answer any questions that council may have regarding the fire Saturday morning.
Thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions regarding the fire? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make a full report next council meeting.
Thank you. Chief Matters.
Thank you. I'd just like to address a few things that's in the paper lately. I think you saw the headline says about the jail closing. just so everybody understands, we are in talking with the Sheriff's Department and Lorraine Police Department about doing a consolidation. When I say consolidation, we'll talk about merging our dispatch and our jail. But just so you know, those are very preliminary stages at this point in time. So hopefully that will come to fruition here and we can save some money here. But right now, we're just we're taking baby steps right now until we try to get this done. The mayor's involved in the conversation with us, and so he's working with us on this. So hopefully we can put this together. So I just want to bring everybody up to speed and have it good.